How do you say her credibility has been destroyed? It seemed to most people you were ineffective at picking apart her story in a long time on the stand yesterday.
Well, I think you're wrong about that. Depends on whom you talk to.
What is the point of credibility?
The point on credibility, number one, is that under oath yesterday, she said that no Senate staffer had said anything about if she came forward, Thomas would withdraw. Later in the afternoon, she flatly changed that. On the credibility of documentation as to why, if these statements were made, she didn't document it. She said she was fearful of losing her job and that he might take retaliatory action against her, and that she did document with specification the time she got work assignments. Well, if you're fearful that you're going to lose your job, which she said flat out, any experienced lawyer would make a record of the kind of language she says Judge Thomas used. When you have a question about whether she was a Class A employee and could stay on at a job, the question of credibility is very much an issue when she says she didn't know she could stay on in a job, and that is central to the question as to why she went with Judge Thomas from education to EEOC. In her statement, she said she was worried about losing a job, and that is a real question as to credibility, given her knowledge as a lawyer as to what a Class A employee could do. And there's more.
Has Judge Thomas's life been destroyed, and will he get on the Supreme Court?
Well, when you ask if Judge Thomas's life has been destroyed, I don't think a man could say it any more forcefully than he said today, that he would have been preferred to have been hit by an assassin's bullet than to have gone through this. Do I agree with that? Well, I think the man speaks for himself.
Senator,
will he be confirmed? I think that's very much yet an open question.
Senator, if your colleagues are uncertain whom to believe, should they and will they give Judge Thomas the benefit of the doubt?
Well, I think that's a question that has to be explored in this hearing, and that's one that I intend to ask Judge Thomas about. When you talk about burden of proof and the benefit of a doubt, you're into some very heavy material, because if you deal with a criminal case, which this is not, and if you have illegally obtained evidence, out goes the case on the proposition that it's more important to protect fair procedures than it is sometimes to convict the guilty. We're not dealing with a criminal case. We're dealing with a Supreme Court nominee. And whatever the source, I dealt with this on the Legal Times story. If the Legal Times story came from a breach of confidence, notwithstanding where it came from, if there was impropriety, we had to consider it. You couldn't consider that in the court of law. So when she said flat out that had this FBI report not been leaked, she wouldn't have come forward, well, you don't rule out her testimony just because somebody broke the law, committed a crime in disclosing the FBI report. You look at it, but all of it bears on a totality of fairness. And when you talk about burden of proof, that's not something I can answer on one foot. That's going to have to be explored.
Isn't it like, nobody will know for sure whether she's telling the truth or not. In that case, if that is the case, what would you say as a senator? Your mind's already made up. What would you tell a senator?
Well, let me tell you that you can't judge it until you see the whole picture. This is a proceeding which has had a lot of ups and a lot of downs, and I'm not prepared to evaluate it or judge it until it's all over.
Seems like your best bet is to get them both in the same room testifying at the same time, and then the people can
you said you wanted to ask me that one question. Now look what you've done.
Senator, one more question on credibility. You say your credibility has been demolished or destroyed. What about the line of corroborating witnesses that we are told will come in and say that either he said those kind of things to her or that Ms. Hill told them this was going on contemporaneously? How is that consistent with your claim
be very careful in what you say about a corroborating witness, which is the first part of your disjunctive. There's never been a claim that there's a corroborating witness. Never a claim. A corroborating witness is someone who hears the event and testifies from first-hand knowledge. Somebody who talks about corroboration ought to look it up. Now, when you move to the second part of your disjunctive about a contemporaneous statement, that is vague and indefinite. There is one witness whom she originally said she told something to. But according to all the information I have, what she said was very sketchy. She identified Clarence Thomas, but not the substance of anything which was said. Now, she's coming forward allegedly with 2 other people, but she didn't tell any co-workers. She didn't tell her family. This is something only for close friends. I think the business about a contemporaneous statement is something that has to be examined very, very closely, and that's what we'll do. But don't talk about corroboration.
What about the second witness? Inspector, how concerned are you this entire process is moving away from the central issue about his fitness to serve on the Supreme Court?
Well, the question about the process moving away from his fitness to be on the Supreme Court is a good question. And you have a lot of concerns as to what has evolved here from the leaked FBI report. But I think that if Judge Thomas has engaged in the kind of conduct which has been described, then I think he's not fit for the court. So I think it's something we have to look at in this context. We have some very, very serious charges, allegations, but you have to remember that they are allegations. They have not been established. And they won't be until we finish this proceeding, one way or the other.
Is he as credible?